right, hello. I am Adam Pizzoni. I'm the CEO and founder of Abl. That is my team. Christmas time, you'll have to stare at that for a minute. What I want to do is tell you a little bit about my journey to discover this area of K-12 that very few people have even heard of, but has a huge impact on whether schools can or do change. So my last company, I was the co-founder and CTO of a company called Yammer, which had an amazing rise. It was one of the fastest growing SaaS companies of all time. And through that, learned a lot about enterprise sales and scaling, and took a lot of those lessons to try to research what was happening in K-12. And what I learned really surprised me. I was asking this question, why is it that schools have a hard time changing? We know a lot of what's working or what's not working. Why do they seem so stuck? And the most surprising thing was that I learned that this narrative that we've all been talking about for a long time isn't actually that true. The narrative that school really hasn't changed in 100 years, and we learned about it from the Prussian model, and it's one size fits all, that model actually doesn't resonate with principals, nor is it that accurate. Yeah, sure, 50 years ago, schools were probably one size fits all, where every student had the same courses, had the same programming. But in the last 50 years, what's happened is a huge multitude of programs have been created. Things like students with IEPs and SSTs and 504s and pathways and IB and on and on and on. What are all these programs? These programs were rudimentary attempts at individualization, at personalization. They were a recognition that not all students were the same. The problem was, instead of treating every student uniquely, but looking at it through the lens of these programs, school has become incredibly complex. And it is that complexity that actually makes it difficult for them to change. Because whatever you want to add to a school, you want them to move to PBL, you want them, that has to be fit into the context of all of those acronyms and another 100 acronyms that I didn't say. And what I discovered was at the heart of all that complexity is a process that every single school in the entire country goes through called master scheduling. That takes about 6 to 9 months. That's all the senior leadership for hundreds of hours, where they're not only fitting the curriculum and the students and the teachers and the staff and the courses, but they're also trying to figure out all of those acronyms. If they're doing pathways or IB, all of those things. I won't belabor the process. It is incredibly painful. Again, every school, whether they're urban or rural or elementary or middle or high or progressive or traditional or district or charter or private, they all go through it. And today, this is what that process looks like. It is spreadsheets and magnet boards that are literally determining the outcomes for students, determining whether resources are distributed equitably, whether programs can be implemented, whether the staff or other resources are used effectively. So what we're doing is building software that is digitizing that process and making it a lot easier for schools to visualize what's possible, to see the trade-offs they're making, and accomplish the goals that they've set for themselves. We're very new. Last year was our first year building with a set of pilot schools. This year we've begun selling. We're very lucky that we already have a set of diverse district partners. San Diego Unified, San Antonio Unified as an example, a couple schools in New York City, also some of the progressive schools like Summit, Uncommon. And I don't have time for stories, but Bonsall actually right near here is one of our schools. The kinds of things that they're using us for, they're coming to us saying, our priority is student equity. And how do they express that equity? Through the master schedule. Our priority in San Antonio, for example, is personalized learning. What does that mean? Rearranging your time and resources, implementing it through the master schedule. You're probably wondering what it looks like. I have very little time, but it's incredibly complex software. It is software where you're literally getting down to the class and course level, understanding the composition, whether those relate to the overall composition of your school. You're looking at how your pathways or academies are laid out. You're trying to, again, understand your teacher equity and teacher utilization over time. Tons and tons of reporting on all of these things. A lot of automation that explains sort of how students are going to be assigned into courses. This is already something all schools are doing. We are not introducing a new process, and because of that reason, it's been relatively easy for us to introduce and sell this to schools. We call the school, they know it's a painful process, and they're very happy when there's a good solution for it. and more stuff, all the way down to the individual student level, looking at what opportunities there are for every student. On top of that, we offer services, especially right now with every school we're working with, to ensure that we're getting proper feedback. We come in not only with software, but we make sure that they're actually achieving their goals for that year, because that is our main goal. Our momentum so far, we've raised about $12 million in funding in 2 rounds from a lot of awesome ed tech investors, Owl Ventures, Rethink, Reach, a couple others from there. Even though we're only in 30 schools, that's 20,000 students just in our first commercial year. We're hoping to grow about 5x next year on that. We actually, is very exciting, are just about done with our goals, our sales goals for this year, ahead of schedule, and we're going to start pre-selling for next year, essentially. And another exciting news, because I'm sure many of you have not heard of the term master scheduling or thought a lot about time as a lever for change in schools. We recently got a relatively large grant from the Gates Foundation on a project that we call Unlocking Time, which is really trying to create awareness within schools about whether their time matches their priorities, and helping them facilitate conversations with their own staff around that, and obviously helping us create awareness about how schools use their time. So again, I don't know how many people here have heard of master scheduling. Probably very few. It's maybe hard to believe that this is something that literally every school has to go through, and in very real terms is the way in which schools operate, the way a school leader sort of changes and iterates on their school. We're not raising right now, though we'd love to talk to anyone who's interested in this and looking for new partners. So my email is adam@ablschools.com. Feel free to reach out. Thank you.